But just in case, to reiterate, we are here to thoughts and feelings about the draft opinion that came out yesterday. And we'll have a couple people speaking, and I'm going to start with my story. And my story is not a traditional abortion story. It's a choice story. So I want to make it clear that abortion rights are not just about controlling the bodies of folks with a uterus. This is a human rights issue. So my story is one that talks about exploited labor, lack of affordable housing, predatory student loan practices, access to health care, and the privilege I had of family support. My story is not unique, but what is unique, that I am now in a position of power where I understand how even local government decisions can support intersectional nature of our human rights. I was 23 years old in my third year of an AmeriCorps program. It's a glorified volunteer program where you're given a stipend, not a salary. Therefore, when you're asked to work 14 hours, you're not entitled to overtime. You also get food stamps, which means they know they are not paying you enough. It also comes with a promise of $10,000 of student loan forgiveness. I was offered this job in advertisements, probably that they knew I had very many high predatory student loans. Through the entire period of my AmeriCorps term, I had no health care. In September of 2013, my now husband got his first full-time job, his first job ever, actually, right out of college. We were married in October 2013, and I had health care for the first time in 3 years. I was ecstatic. That meant I no longer had to go to the free clinic for birth control, but on my less than minimum wage volunteer gig, all of my $10 copays went on a credit card. In January of 2014, I started feeling sick, and my friend insisted I was pregnant, but I knew that was impossible because I was on birth control and mostly took it on time. I took a test anyways and was terrified when I saw 2 lines. I cried because I was going to have an abortion. It felt impossible to bring a baby into the world in my situation. My crappy room in a crappy house with crappy roommates on my left. My first call was to a friend, the same who thought I was pregnant, to talk to her about the abortion she had in college. My second call was to Kaiser, my new healthcare agent. They made it with a matter-of-fact tone, and they just asked if I had decided if I would carry to term. They did not congratulate me or make me feel shame for any decision I might make. In my first appointment, there was not just an OB, there was a social worker giving me all of my options. I expressed my fears of not being financially stable. She showed me how to apply for more food stamps. I was in the middle of applying for grad school. I felt I was going to have to give up on that. What was I even going to be when I grew up? I couldn't bring a child into that. And without judgment or pressure, they let me make the decision to think about it for a while, talk to my family and friends, and come back before I did the initial actual healthcare scans. When I talked to my mother, I realized that I did want to be a parent. I just thought this was 10 years early, and I didn't think I was ready. When I eventually told my partner, his pure joy and excitement in his voice cemented the fact that I did want to be a parent, and I did want to be a parent with him. I would just have to find all the help that I could get. And I was so privileged and lucky to have family that could give me that support. I finally had health care that could help take care of this pregnancy that I now have. But 3 months earlier, my decision might not have been the same. I made a decision, a choice in conversation with family that I would be a mother. And I was very excited about that. So then we got to apartment hunting because we were not bringing this kid home to a rat-infested, literally rat-infested house with multiple roommates. And so we applied everywhere, and we were turned down because rent was 50% of our income, and it needed to be 30% of our income. We didn't have any options. So we had to move home with mom. Not my choice. My husband worked in Fremont. We moved to Sonoma County. So he was driving 2.5 hours each way every day as I was home with a newborn by myself. After 15 months of saving and paying down debt, we put a pin on the map where my husband worked, and that's how we ended up in Livermore. Close enough, but also affordable enough in comparison to the rest of the Bay Area. 2 years later, I made the choice to be a mother again, and this time the choice I made was to stop taking that birth control. It was not the choice to not have an abortion. So either way, both of my children were chosen and loved, and I am honored and lucky to have been able to make the choice to be a parent. It's not a story about abortion. It's a story about the privilege I had to make choices. And what I'm asking from all of you here today is to ensure that you're not showing up at this rally and then just yelling about this online, but think about how local that support our human rights. I cannot make a decision on abortion rights, but I could make decisions that would ensure that a 23-year-old like me, who finally felt comfortable in being a mother, could live in the town that she lived in and where her family worked by providing affordable housing and not requiring 30% of the income, but saying 50% is okay. You can ensure that you're supporting people who support women. Please, and anybody with uteruses, really. You can ensure that you're supporting candidates who have not abused women or children. Please don't vote for them. And if you think what I'm saying is ludicrous and obvious to avoid, please look at your ballot in November, your local ballot. There are people on there that fit that description. We're fighting for access to choice to be a mother, or the choice not to, the choice to live where you work. And I hope that no one else has to make choices like my family did to commute 2 hours each day so that we can have affordable rent. And that is why I'm here to chat with you all. And I'm excited to hear other people's stories. And remember that even though I'm not on the Supreme Court, your local electeds do make decisions that can support human rights in general. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to another council member who recruited me into this. So come on up, Trish.
Hi, everyone. Oh, here we are again. Look at this. Right, yeah. So I think all of us who are on council are here in spirit. In particular, Bob Carling says he's at a family event. He's here in spirit. Mayor Bob Warner said the following: the Supreme Court draft indicates the very real possibility that they, the Supreme Court, are intent on taking away fundamental women's rights, which means human rights. These rights are essential to our society and have been won through many hard-fought battles. We cannot let our society be led backwards by the court, supported by misguided legislators. I urge people to support candidates across the country that will work hard to preserve women's rights in their legislatures and nationally. Preserve, that means that what we're doing here, as I think hopefully you will hear from every single person speaking, won't make a damn bit of difference if it ends here. There are people here who are passing around sign-up sheets. Sign up. Pay attention to the local elections. Pay attention to the regional elections. Pay attention to the state elections, and work nationally, because this is not a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. There's probably other analogies we could use, but hey, I'll go with the good ones. When I spoke with the mayor, I said, "Do you have anything to say?" And this is what he gave me. And I said, "Great, that's about what I was going to say. You did it better, write it down." So what he said goes for me as well. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic back over.
I'm going to invite Arlen. Or Arlene. Saying your name on? Arlene?
Arlene Grimm.
Oh, Arlene. Yes. Arlene Grimm. Thank you. And you're going to share your story. Thank you.
I appreciate it. This is short. It's only 3 minutes. It might run a little bit closer to the... Oh, okay. My name is Arlene Grimm, and I was until I retired, a nurse practitioner. My life was very different, though, when I married my first husband and had 2 children. And we My greatest goal was to get through college and become a nurse, and he was working full-time. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And at the time of his diagnosis, he had a surgery, and 70% of his testicle was malignant. It had to be removed. I was told by the doctor at that time that it had probably migrated up his lymphatic system, and he would most likely be dead within a year or two, at most. They referred him to Northwestern University Medical Center. I'm sorry, not Northwestern, Loyola. It's a Catholic medical center. At the time, it was a newly developed therapy. They were giving him absolutely the most massive doses that they could of radiation. He was young. He had 2 young children. And as a result, he lost his hair, and we were told he would be sterile for 6 months, possibly a year, maybe for life. And, of course, promptly, I got pregnant 6 weeks later. I had no way of supporting the family. We lost our parents. Each of us lost a parent to cancer shortly before. I was faced with losing the house, not being able to care for a husband, not being able to support my children. I didn't really feel I had a lot of choice about carrying that pregnancy. I knew I had to meet my responsibilities to my family first and foremost. There was no way to get an abortion at that time. They were illegal in Illinois. The only 2 places in the world, in the United States, you could get them, was New York and California. We didn't know how to get one. We called Planned Parenthood in Michigan. That was the closest we could get. Michigan said, send $500, $500, 1970 money, to New York, to this, or agents, it wasn't even a Planned Parenthood, and then show up on such and such a day at 8 o'clock in the morning and they'll give you an abortion. Okay, so we couldn't afford it. We did it anyway. We got in our camper, pop-up camper, on to New York, in a trailer park next to Joe Montana's girlfriend, and we were told if we kept our eyes out in the middle of the night, Joe Montana might come up. And anyway, the next day I showed up at the Sham Hospital. It was a dilapidated old place with plaster walls that were being taken apart. I understand from the other girls, I didn't get this treatment because they thought I was a plant in the newspaper, but the other girls had to stand in line while doctors put a glove up there to feel their uteruses, and then pull it off, change gloves, and go on to the next girl. That's how they determined age of pregnancy. For me, I was lucky. I didn't get that treatment. Also because I was number 1, I didn't get to see the bloody delivery rooms. I was the first abortion of the day, and I had a general, of course, those days. And the girls who came after me told me that they didn't clean up, didn't even bother to clean up beforehand, and the girls were dragged in one after the other and saw all the blood from the abortions before them. I woke up in an absolutely horrible, dirty ward with probably 20 other young women. Many of them were teenagers who told their mothers they were on sleepovers. These girls cried and cried, and even the women cried after what we'd been through. We were given a white bread, bologna sandwich, no butter knife, and sent out the door in 2 hours. That was it. Came back to Illinois. Come on, it's over. Get it. It was over. I went back to Northwestern University after that to become a physical therapist. I got into the program. 6 weeks into the program, actually before I got into the program, I went to my family doctor and the Northwestern University Medical School doctor. Both of them put me on Orthonovum 180. It was a safe birth control pill. Oh yeah, it was safe all right. 6 weeks into the program, I keeled over in the middle of Superior Avenue. And they carried me into Methodist Hospital, and I went into respiratory arrest and cardiac failure twice. I ended up in ICU for 3 weeks, dying. Finally came around. I couldn't even breathe. They told me, I woke up enough to talk to the doctor. I said, what's my chances? He says, oh, about 1 in a couple hundred. I said, what can you do for me? He says, well, if we open you up, it might be a little bit better. But fortunately, it didn't come to that. You can still see my cut down from that wonderful experience. I got out of Northwestern eventually. I was going to do a thing. Anyway, where am I now? I'll tell you quickly. Okay. Then I became pregnant again. Fun and games. Fun and games. Became pregnant again. By then, everybody knew my medical condition. When I was pregnant, I went to my family doctor. He grabbed my husband out of the waiting room, He spent 45 minutes while the patients piled up, telling my husband, "You have got to convince her to have an abortion. She will not survive given her medical history." And then he said, "Oh yes, you are entitled to one under Illinois law because her life is at risk. But don't try to do it under Illinois law because you'll have to get an independent certificate of affirmation from 3 different OBGYN practices, and it'll take you time to set up the appointments, and by the time you get these certificates and everything, you'll end up with a 2nd trimester abortion in the hospital, which is probably more money than you want to spend. Make it easy on yourselves. Go to abortion, or go to Wisconsin." So we ended up packing up and going to Wisconsin for my 2nd abortion. Even though it was legal, it wasn't accessible. And I had a 2nd abortion. I wanted neither of those abortions. But circumstances of my life drove the situation. And I want other women to know that just because you think you don't want an abortion doesn't mean that your mother, your sister, your aunt, your cousin, your daughter might not die, because they might not come to you, and even if they did, they might not be willing to go along with you and say, "Oh, you don't need an abortion." People need to know that it affects every one of us, every one of our lives, to keep abortion safe and legal for all women in every state. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite up Mel. Where'd you go, Mel? And you're going to share a story from a friend.
It's required. Okay, my name is Mel Chong. I'm a resident of Livermore for the last 24 years. And my story is about a friend. So I have one of my closest, dearest friends from childhood. She's very religious. And when she was pregnant with her child, she developed medical conditions that endangered her life, put her life, at risk. And when she found out that she was pregnant again, and we don't talk about a lot of political issues, but I think she is more in the conservative side. So remember that she's religious, and when she was pregnant with her 2nd pregnancy, and after consulting with her doctor, they were certain that those same medical conditions are going to come back and threaten her life again. And so with a heavy, heavy heart, she made a very difficult decision to go to a clinic and end her pregnancy. She chose her life. She made her own decision. I think this is the bottom line is that decision was hers and hers alone. Her neighbors didn't have to know it. Her state didn't have to know it. Because it was a private and personal decision that she and her husband made. And so this is, in as much as this is a rights issue and a privacy issue, this is also a healthcare issue. As it will be a recurring theme, a healthcare issue, an equity issue, because we know who's going to be hit the hardest. Minorities, the economically disadvantaged. And so this is not one issue that we are talking about. This is going to be a myriad of issues that are all going to be interconnected. And what can we do? Like Brittany said, and again, a recurring theme, we are not helpless. We can do things aside from making our voices heard, aside from assembly. We make choices in the balance. Study issues and make choices, the right choices in the balance, that's going to keep our rights intact. And it's a sad thing to be making an assembly in this way, but I'm glad that we are doing this today. This is urgent, and so we keep doing this. And so that's my story. My friend is doing well. Her son is now fully launched in society. But I'm glad that she's alive and she's still my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. I think something Mel, and I think what's important about that meeting is not that we met over there, but that multiple people that were there are now in office. Because we made a decision to do something other than just assemble, but to organize and activate. Whether it's knocking on doors, which I know a lot of you have done in the past couple of weeks, or running for office yourself. So I appreciate that this community is active. I would now like to invite Joanne Morrison.
Thank you. My name's Joanne Morrison. I'm an attorney and a resident of Livermore and a member of the steering committee of Livermore.
Joanne, close to your mouth, very close.
Is this better?
You practically have to eat it.
Okay, I want to start by saying that abortion will not stop just because it is banned in certain states or even nationally. But abortion will stop being safe and accessible. Women have been having abortions since time immemorial. I'm now in my 70s, but as a young woman, I remember my grandmother telling me about a close relative of her generation, my great aunt, having an abortion. My aunt was lucky enough to have the family doctor perform her abortion, and she was safe. When I was 19 with an unwanted pregnancy, I was not as fortunate. Abortion was illegal in Massachusetts where I lived, and my family doctor was too afraid to help me. My abortion was performed in the back room of a residential apartment in Providence, Rhode Island, by a stranger introduced to me by a friend of a friend. I remember lying on a mattress covered with newspapers while a woman injected some kind of fluid into me. I don't know what it was. A few days later, I found myself in the emergency room of the local hospital with a fever of 104. I don't remember much of what happened next, except that the hospital staff treated me like a pariah. I survived with the firm conviction that no woman should be treated that way for exercising what should be her right to control of her own body, or for seeking what should be part of every woman's right to reproductive health care. I and many other women had to fight for those rights for years. And by the time I was in law school, Roe v. Wade had been decided, giving women the hope that backroom abortions, like mine, were a thing of the past. But I know now that I will probably have to spend the rest of my life fighting to win back those rights we all fought so hard for so many years ago. I hope you will all be fighting with me. Now is the time. We must go forward, not back.
Lily, it's a little bit late, so can Gina talk?
Yep. I'm going to invite up Gina. Oh,
I know.
hold on, invite you. Welcome.
I meant to mention it. She's here. And I'm really happy. Gina, Mike.
Yeah.
Practically in my mouth. Okay. I appreciate you all being here. Couldn't agree more with your thoughts that I've heard so far, and all the words you've used, and all the personal stories that just reinforce my dedication to doing whatever I can as an individual to ensure that we can stop this from happening, and if we can't stop it from happening, we need to work really hard in the states where women are going to have the toughest time. That's going to be one of my areas of focus, which is to work hard for women who don't live in California, don't live in New York, don't live in states where we probably will be able to continue to give women a choice to do what they choose with their body. And thank you all for being here. And let's keep fighting. It's not over. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks, and when the decision finally comes out, we will have to stay busy, stay active, and stay together. Thank you.
All right, I'm excited to invite up Lily. Lily, I met a couple years ago, and I think you were 16, and I was like, I want to be Lily when I grow up, because Lily has started her own nonprofit and does a lot of really cool stuff. So go ahead and chat with us.
Sorry, Kira. Thank you guys for having me. I just kind of made it on time. My name is Lily. I am a current senior at Foothill High School, and I am really happy to see everyone out here today. I think this past 23 hours has been a whirlwind of emotions for us, and it inspires me to see that there are people that are also here fighting for this, because it kind of feels easy to feel alone in this. So upon reading the opinion yesterday, or the draft of the opinion, I think I kind of read into it from a different lens than I would have a year ago. This year I was a member of my school's competition civics team, and throughout the year I have been, thank you, I have been in an in-depth study of the Bill of Rights and how rights are protected in America. And so upon reading the decision yesterday, I was not only devastated about the implications of the loss of safe and legal abortion access for women, but also about what this means for our rights and our Constitution. Because the right to an abortion is not explicitly enumerated in the Constitution, it was found kind of through this idea of a protection of privacy through prenuptial rights, through a combination of amendments. And I'm horrified to see Justice Alito's logic that this is like egregiously wrong or weakly protected just because it's not explicitly enumerated. Because within this opinion, he also went so far as to suggest that other rights, such as the decision in Indivisible v. Hodges to extend a similar logic to gay marriage, or the decision in Lawrence v. Texas, which extended a similar logic to legalize sodomy, he kind of suggested that these could eventually also be overturned. And so I guess I just wanted to come here today to talk about that, and to talk about how I'm scared but also hopeful, because this upcoming midterm is the first election I will ever be able to vote in. With that in mind, I think that the most important thing to do right now is to remember that the Supreme Court is not the only branch that can work to protect these rights. I want to work to put pressure on our elected representatives to do phone banking and to elect people, or to work to get people elected in other states that may not so easily keep abortion legalized. And I think that that is something that we're all going to need to work on. Of course, this decision is not final, and so I still have hope for that. But there's still work to be done, and I'm just really grateful again that everybody is here today. And yeah, I just want to reiterate that this is so important, because it's not only abortion access that's depending on this decision, but our rights as Americans in general.
Thank you, Lily. That also gets me excited, because this is going to be the first election for a lot of young people. So I really hope that Jen, what are you, Z now? What am I? A Y? You're Z. will save us all from ourselves. I would like to now invite up Christine Kanza.
She was there a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, I was told that you're going to share 5 actions that we can take.
I told her.
Okay, so, yes, closer.
If you've been paying attention to the Republican appointed Supreme Court, in the past few years, you knew that this was going to be coming. And it wasn't going to be easy, frankly, but we thought we at least would have several more weeks to plan our response. So here's what you need to know right now. An unelected conservative majority of the Supreme Court, appointed by two presidents who both lost the popular vote, is going to overturn 50 years of precedent and our right to a legal abortion. Losing those,
Are you going to be next?
this puts thousands, if not millions, of people at risk, and it particularly impacts low-income people of color and women. So, what can we do right now? One, if you need an abortion right now, the law is still allowed to land.
We're going to have her with her.
Okay, so the 5 actions that you can take, I would like for Kyoko to make sure is posted on the website and goes in a newsletter because it's kind of long. But there are a couple closing things that I wanted to make sure that we say. I heard a couple talk tracks that I want to make sure that we expand on a little bit. One of them is religion. Not all religion is anti-abortion. So we should not put people in a box for being religious and anti-abortion. I think it's important to remember that the extremes are where we have problems. And we need to make sure that we are having open and honest conversations with our neighbors, not making the assumption that if they go to a Catholic church that they are not going to respect your rights. As a very young person, I was generally a human being that was very black and white about what was right and what was wrong and who must believe what. And I think in general, we all grow and learn that that's not necessarily true, that there is nuance. And I think it's important specifically to talk about that with religion. I also think it's important for us to realize that this is the first election in a long time that we will get swaths of new young voters, and to remember when we are having conversations to ask what they care about in the election. I think I am finding myself becoming the old person that annoyed me, and I shouldn't tell you what I think you should care about. You should tell me what you care about, and then I will find ways that we have commonalities and how we can support each other in making change for good. And this is an important election, and we don't have a great history of our showing in off-year midterm elections. And I'm hoping that we can, at least in Livermore, where we can control, do a great job of getting everybody out to the ballot box. That is to say, I believe, what time do people have to turn in their Measure A ballot? 8 o'clock, okay? You got a couple hours. Turn in your ballot for Measure A, please. Every single election matters. It is all connected. If anybody else would have anything to say, I'm going to leave the mic open for you. Other than that, I really appreciate all of you being here and continuing to participate. And I'm going to actually give it to Kyoko.
Yeah, let's switch.
So the 5 actions. The 5 actions we are supposed to give you. First one is abortion is still legal right now. So if you need help, seek your help. And we have the local put Marmonte. So that's the organization we can support. They need a lot of support. With Roe v. Wade gone, we are probably going to experience over 1 million women coming to California. And those people need help. And then, secondly, we have to win this election. Media just said, we can't win. Midterm, President Party lose. We don't need to believe that. If we work hard, we can actually win. Fortunately, redistricting actually went fairly well for Democrats. So the Congress, we can do it. Especially we have in California 6 seats we need to actually protect and flip. And states as U.S. senators, we also have 4 to protect, 3 to flip. It takes all of us work with us. If you are interested in this electoral campaign, please join Swing Left Tri-Valley. And by signing up here, you will start receiving all the information, both for the abortion rights and the electoral campaign stuff. The third point was we need to actually speak about it. Just like Brittany said, 75% of voters believe abortion should be
legal,
accepted as human rights, as healthcare. So as long as we actually open our heart and speak to everybody, it's only 25% of population or voters who do not agree with us. But people need to be aware what's at stake. As Vivi said, our rights, many rights are on the line. It is not time to sit aside. It is not too early to start working on the campaign. Then California has to actually protect those who's coming for abortion and also who gives the abortion, the healthcare providers. Because in those states, they are trying to criminalize abortion. So we have to protect, and that can be done by the state legislatures. So like Planned Parenthood has been working on very hard. It's not just protecting abortion rights itself, but how to help and protect patients and doctors alike. Yes, and yeah.
Question: is there any kind of list to be on for housing people who are coming?
A lot of things will be actually coming this later because we just got really hit by this sooner than we expected. So the original bunch of our bodies rallies were planned to be on May 14th. We are almost 10 days early. So a lot of stuff hasn't been really, resources will be coming, okay? And the fourth part is we need to actually elect more women. In California, we have 120 representatives in the state legislation. We only have 37 women. It's less than 1/3. So when we have chance, we need to elect women, and it starts with the local elections because those elected officials tend to just keep going up. And we need to reactivate our communities to take care of each other. And women are much better in general to do so. And finally, just don't forget to sign in if you didn't sign up online, so we can send you all this information. Thank you so much. And before we just go away, if we can just get together here and take pictures, that would be great. So, thank you so much.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to put on my photographer hat. Everybody.